Hamilton McKay Twombly. The groom came with his own money and proved to be no slouch at making lots more of it. He invested all of their assets in mining ventures and transportation and multiplied them. Florence went on to be the wealthiest of her siblings, as well as the longest lived, and she was without a doubt the biggest spender of them all, which would explain why we, her descendants, carry the malignant code for extravagance in our genomes. The Twombleys had 4 children: Alice, Florence, Ruth, and Hamilton. The family lived the simple life of the wildly rich. They wintered in New York City in their townhouse, the last great private home to be built on Fifth Avenue, and when not traveling in Europe, they summered in Newport, in a 50-room cottage on Cliff Walk overlooking the sea. It wasn't enough. Hamilton Twombly wanted something within commuting distance of the city, so in 1890 he purchased 1,200 acres in Morris County, New Jersey, and enlisted the architectural services of McKim, Mead, and White. 600 laborers were shipped over from Italy, and it took them 6 years to construct a 110-room rose brick and limestone Georgian house that was a faithful reproduction of Christopher Wren's West Wing of Hampton Court Palace. Emulating the houses of King Henry VIII was not considered a frivolity at the turn of the century. Thomas Edison, a neighbor and friend, designed the massive electrical generator and heating plant that needed to run the estate. Stabling was built to house 50 horses, as were carriage houses and garages, a dozen greenhouses, and an orangery. Frederick Law Olmsted rearranged 150 acres of the wild New Jersey rolling hills and forests of oak and beech into a series of formal gardens, terraces, and parkland. The remaining 750 acres were designated for the working farm and the dairy operation of several hundred prized Guernsey cattle, the largest such private breeding farm in the country. The Twombleys named their labor of love Florham, a combination of their 2 first names. It was close enough to the city that you could see the skyline of New York from the East Terrace, and for 4 months out of the year, during the spring and fall social seasons, they lived and entertained there. The opulence of the newly rich was at its zenith in the late 1800s, and no one did it better than my great-great-grandparents. They stuffed their houses full of important furnishings: Queen Anne, Georgian, Chippendale, Hepplewhite, Sheraton, and Regency furniture, 17th century Berberini tapestries, paintings by Rubens and Van Dyck, 18th century colored mezzotints, antique Chinese and Persian rugs, Meissen and Kong and Ming dynasty porcelains, bronzes and miniatures, and gold and enamel snuff boxes, and Louis XV gilded chandeliers the size of the Hindenburg. They lured the highest echelon of workers imaginable, like Queen Victoria's head gardener. They had non-stop weekend house parties and dances and lunches and teas and balls. In just 2 generations, what had begun as a meritocracy had turned into a lifestyle that could rival that of European royalty. It was all so wonderfully arriviste, so very American. Rarely do things go as planned. Alice, the eldest Twombly child, died of pneumonia when she was 16. Hamilton, the youngest, drowned a few years later when he was a counselor at a camp for poor boys. My great-great-grandfather was inconsolable over the loss of his only son. He suffered a nervous breakdown. It eventually leached into his kidneys, and he died, a broken-hearted, if extremely wealthy, man. Grandma Twombly, as she was now known, went on to thrive for another 40 years. Tiny and bird-like, autocratic, elegant, frosty and brittle, she worked like a party animal for her title of the Vanderbilt hostess. As the undisputed head of the old guard New York society, she entertained lavishly, with the help of her famous French chef and her staff of 200, in an imperial style that few could match. And when she finally died, at the age of 98, from injuries sustained during a tumble in the living room, like confines of her Rolls-Royce limousine, it was said by those who cared that New York society died with her. Out of the 4 Twombly children, 2 daughters remained: Florence, my great-grandmother, and her younger sister Ruth. Ruth was never to marry. After her father's death, she assumed management of her mother's empire, and she excelled at running it.